he said if I have any other change in it, just to call them and not to go to emergency, which is how I hacked the medical system to get into him, as I went through the emergency department. So, I hacked the medical system to get there because I needed to do it. So he just said, next time, just call our office. We will make sure to see you because I'm proactive. And they like that. If you're proactive with your health, they like it. If you don't ask questions, they're not going to answer because they don't know what you want to know or need to know. They're going to tell you what they need to tell you. They're waiting for questions. Ask them. Just ask. They really love it when you ask them.
Hello, everyone. It is Nicolette Richer here, host of the Eat Real to Heal podcast, coming to you live from the Whistler FM studios in beautiful Whistler, British Columbia, Canada. I'm really excited about today's podcast with Marina Giokas. Marina is a serial entrepreneur who comes from the world of international finance and intellectual property arbitrage. Now, I'm not even entirely sure what a day in the life of that business sector looks like, but you're going to hear her story and how she tells about the stress that she had in her life as a result of her work. Anyway, she became so stressed out with all of it, and it was truly a hurry up and wait kind of industry where she was constantly waiting on other people to get her job done. So in the end, she ended up ditching the world of finance to start her own business, and she was backed up by two of the most recognizable names in the skincare business globally. So now she works with other budding entrepreneurs to help them set up and run their own empires. But one thing that is unique to Marina is that she was diagnosed with breast cancer. Now, some of you might be wondering how we select people to be on our Eat Real to Heal podcast. And it truly comes down to me either working with clients where they are taking their health into their own hands, and I teach them how to use food as medicine to reverse their disease, and then they go on to do that. And then, of course, we want to share their story with other people because there is always more than one way to heal yourself from chronic disease. I choose to use food as metabolic medicine and food as nutrition. Now, there's so many other things that people can do as well. And I'm not one to say that energy medicine doesn't work or one to say that exercise can't change your lifestyle and, prompt you to adopt better lifestyle habits that's going to contribute to the reversal of your disease. But at the end of the day, the one thing that I know and the research has supported is that diet is responsible for 90% of that healing. So that's the approach that I take. But of course, there's the mental health aspect. There's a mind-body connection. There's a getting rid of the stress. There's all of that, which we incorporate into the program that we teach our clients. But truly, to be someone who's accepted onto our podcast, you have to be someone who went against the status quo and said, you know what, I'm going to do the research. I'm going to educate myself. I'm going to make decisions that's best for me and my family. And I am not just going to hand over myself to someone else who says that chemosurgery and radiation are the only options. Now, we're not against chemosurgery or radiation. In fact, there's a time and a place for those things. But what we don't want people doing is when they literally just hand their bodies over to a specialist or a practitioner who says, you know what, it's the only way to do it, because the science shows that it's not the only way to do it. And in fact, depending on your type of cancer and chronic disease, it could be more detrimental to go down that path without making the lifestyle changes around your diet, your stress, your exercise, and so on. So Marina is somebody who did take her health into her own hands. She did the research, and as a result, she is on the other side of cancer, and she's learned so much along the way. And that's the pertinent part about this podcast, is we want to teach you what that looks like to start educating yourself, start taking your health into your own hands, and showing what that learning journey looks like, because it truly is all about that journey. So Marina has an incredible story of being diagnosed with breast cancer, of being maneuvered through the system to the point where she takes her health into her own hands check, which is why we invited her here. And you'll learn what it's like to become a researcher, and to dive deep into that research, which leads to discovering a whole other way of treating cancer, illness, and ultimately life. Her journey will resonate with so many of you wellness warriors out there in the world, and her story will also inspire you to sit up, take notice of all the possibilities that exist when it comes to being diagnosed with and treated for cancer. It's a story of not sitting idly back, but instead of being a gladiator and a wellness warrior. So please welcome Marina Giokas. Such a pleasure to have her on the podcast.
Hi, everyone. Such a pleasure to be here with Marina. We're going to jump right into this amazing interview that we have scheduled, because I met Marina probably, I guess it was over a year ago, and she had been connected to me via Sherry Strong. We'll get into explaining who Sherry Strong is, because I want Marina to tell the story. But such a fantastic story about taking your health into your own hands, about exploring all the options that are out there when it comes to treatment options, health options. Anytime we are diagnosed with something, it is a healing journey, starting from the very first symptom when we start to get curious about what's happening in our body, why our body is not behaving the way that we need it to. So whether it's showing elements of pain or distress or fatigue, or, I mean, there's just so many different things that happen. And a lot of us ignore these symptoms. And then we ignore them until the point where they actually almost feel like it becomes explosive. And then that's usually when we end up in the doctor's office or an emergency with a critical acute diagnosis. And this is exactly what happened with Marina. So Marina, can you take us back to much before the time when you're actually diagnosed with your estrogen positive invasive breast cancer? Because that is, so many women are faced with breast cancer in our society, and it's, the statistics show that we're not really getting a handle on it. More and more women are being diagnosed. Yes, they're being able to live longer with their diagnosis, with their illness, but they are not necessarily, we haven't seen the reduction in breast cancer rates that, you know, I think that the medical industry was hoping for and the pharmaceutical industry was hoping for. Now, you had shared a story with me about how quite a few years before you started experiencing symptoms. Can you take us back to what was that time in your life when your health started to decline?
Probably. Hi, Nicolette, and thank you so much for having me on here. And you know what? I'm thrilled to share this, because the more information and the more this kind of sharing that we get out there, the more people will, I think, will be on the uptake of being in charge of their health, or at least being a bit more aware and seeking more options. Because I didn't have that. I didn't have anybody working with me in the very beginning. And it was a real voyage of discovery, as you say, because I was getting very ill. I was crashing in the afternoon. I wasn't in control of that either. It would just be, wake up in the morning and feel great. And then by 1 o'clock, I would say, well, I'm just going to lay down for half an hour. It could be 4 or 6 hours, and I'd be totally out. And what we've determined since is that what took my system down was antibiotics that just came from normal usage that we're all exposed to through, for me, it was cataract surgery in 2 eyes. You know, in a case of pneumonia. This was over an 18-month period, probably 6 incidents of using antibiotics, but nobody related it to me getting sick. So now all of a sudden my system's not working and I can't figure out why. And I'm going to my doctor, getting blood tests, getting hormone tests, everything, and then escalated that through the medical system to an internal specialist who was fabulous, because she got on it and she said what she needs to be is extremely paranoid about my health, in the sense that we don't know where it's coming from, so we have to search everywhere. So that was more meetings, more tests, more analyzing those test results. And while we were just, you know, like partway through that process, because, you know, it takes a long time to get into a specialist. It took me about 4 months to get to her. And so that journey was about 4 months, and that's when I got diagnosed with breast cancer. It was a bad, you know, like a bad mammogram, I'd call it, to start off with, and escalated from there, and into a lot of procedures.
Okay, so let's go back even further. We'll jump forward to what happened when you got diagnosed and what that was like for you, and what was going through your brain at the time, and what was going through your heart at the time. But let's go back. So when you were first experienced, you had cataract surgery first. So you had gone in for like a normal procedure, and then that led to a dose of antibiotics.
Yes. And actually, when you have cataract surgery, there's a lot of antibiotics involved because the drops they put in your eyes that you put in 3-4 times a day for 3 months are antibiotics. So
Yeah.
that hits your entire system. Well, you do that with 2 eyes. And then if there's any issues, which I had an issue, so now they had the laser, now more antibiotics via your eyes. And then now in my case, antibiotics they're not good for anybody, but they're really bad for me. So my system started crashing, and I was doing probiotics and everything that I could think of to shore my body back up, and it wasn't working. So I've got my system's weakened. And so I got pneumonia, and other things happen, right? So more antibiotics.
So before you had the cataract surgery, were you experiencing those dips in the afternoon of fatigue, or was that didn't happen until after the antibiotic usage?
Absolutely not. No, I was totally healthy. I had tons of energy. I was like, I'd get up in the morning, I'd do the seawall or go to the gym, and at the end of the day, I'd do the seawall, and I worked all day, and I'd be, up and productive until, 10, 11, and then get up at 5:30 the next day again. So no, I'd never experienced that in my life. And it was just, the lack of energy was my trigger, was what really pointed it out to me, because that's so unlike me.
Right. So I love that you knew that was unlike you, because I think there's so many people in our society, I mean, millions of people who rely on coffee, right? Coffee is the answer. It's the way to wake up in the morning. It's the way to get through that 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock dip in the afternoon. It's the way to, and then we come home and then we need to come down. So we have a glass of wine and, but a lot of people are continuously suppressing the symptoms, whereas you were very hyper aware that there was a significant difference, and that, you knew that those dips in the afternoon weren't normal. So, one of the things that when we do podcasts with people and when we bring them on because I truly feel and I truly know that they are healing heroes. It's the people who pay attention to their symptoms. And we often say, don't shoot the messenger. So, taking that cup of coffee in the afternoon to pick yourself back up when you're having that energy dip, it's like shooting the messenger. Your body is trying to tell you, hey, I'm tired for a reason. So whether it needs to go into cellular regeneration, so it needs a rest, it needs a nap, whether your brain is fatigued and maybe it needs sugar, but not sugar in the form of refined sugar, but maybe even just some fruit instead of a muffin, which has so much processed refined sugar. Maybe even, vegetables, which have so many oxidating nutrients. They bring oxygen to the brain. They bring fuel to the brain and light you up. Even better than what a cup of coffee would do. So these healing heroes are people who recognize they have symptoms. They don't shoot the messenger. They go off and then they seek the help that they need to get. So here you are. Did you ever listen to Dr. Zach Bush's podcast on Rich Roll? Are you familiar with it?
No, I'm not. No.
Okay, so it's a remarkable podcast, and I really recommend everybody listens to it. We'll put the link down below. But Dr. Zach Bush, he was, started off in engineering, and then he was a medical doctor, and then he was doing cancer research and literally chemotherapy, drug development. Then he moved into internal medicine, then functional medicine, as he learned more about the body and the immune system and the endocrine system and how it all works together. And then he learned about food as medicine. And then now he strictly has a clinic that teaches people how to use food as medicine to heal and reverse their diseases. But the number one piece in that podcast, which is so remarkable, number one, it's about glyphosate usage, so that everybody thinks it's a pesticide that comes on our, conventionally grown foods and our crops, but it's actually an antibiotic as well. So when people aren't eating organic food, they're actually taking in organic antibiotics, and it's not just in the food, it's in our water, it's in our air, it's all around us. So here you are, you might have been on the tipping point there, and then all of a sudden you have to take this pharmaceutical dosages for the cataracts and then the pneumonia. But what he said that is the most remarkable piece is that he said there's studies that show that within 6 months of taking antibiotics, there's a significant increase in depression. And so, and I think it's 60%. You take 2 doses of antibiotics in 1 year, then those depression rates go up even more. But it really shows that also the antibiotics, we know when they decimate our gut health, that decimates our hormone health and our endocrine system and our immune system. So, okay, going back to when you were, so please, everybody listen to that podcast. So going back to the point where you all of a sudden get to go see an intern, who negotiated that for you? Did your physician say, hey, you know what, I want you to see an internal medicine specialist? How did that come about? Because not everybody gets referred to an internal medicine practitioner.
No, my GP did, and he's a pretty cool guy. He's right on it. He's quite progressive. And you know, and plus I'm a good patient. I get a physical every year, and I have since I was about 19. So there's a lot of data on me in the sense of, so they see when you're proactive as a patient with your GP or whoever, they like working, you know, it's like work with the working, work with the willing, and they really appreciate that because I respect their time and what their intelligence is and all of that stuff. So you know, when we're going through this, he knows I'm not a whiner. I very rarely need to see a doctor. I go every year. I'm proactive with my health and all of that. So when I'm saying I'm having a serious problem, he's on it. And so, you know, a little after a couple of tests, he said, well, we have to get you. We have to get you there now, because he also knows me as being extremely energetic. So when I say I haven't lost my energy, and by the way, I'm not a coffee drinker. Never have been. So I'm not one of those people that's reaching for that or using it in the morning. You know, so that's not one of my things. And so I didn't have anything like that people would do as a crutch to pick them up. So
and that's probably something that just got you that much further ahead faster. It's because you were very hyper aware of what your body was telling you, because you weren't trying to drug out those symptoms. And I mean, coffee is a drug at the end of the day, and people need to realize that. You know, definitely there's some health benefits to coffee, but I don't know if they really outweigh all the, you know, other downsides of coffee. So, okay, so you go in, you get referred to an internal medicine specialist. 4 months goes by before you get to see her. Is that correct?
yeah.
Okay. And then when she saw you, I love what you said that, you know, this specialist said, I'm going to make this a priority, right?
Oh, yeah,
what did
big time. Big time. It's like she was a private investigator.
And that's what we need. People need to understand that if they have a practitioner, I often say, you know what, you can fire your doctors, because at the end of the day, if they're not working for you, I mean, at the end, it's your health benefits, it's your dollar, it's your, you know, money, it's your taxes that are going into this medical system. And so if you have somebody who's not advocating for you and working for you, you absolutely need to get a second opinion, which we should do in a lot of cases. But you also just need to fire that person and find somebody. So here you are. Okay, so you're on this beautiful path where you get referred to the internal medicine doctor. She's advocating for you. And then how long did that take in working with her, and what sort of things did she do to try and understand what was going on?
We've been working together, so November, probably about 4 or 5 months. We just sort of started because, you know, you go, you get some tests, they have to come back, you have to get another appointment. So it's always a process. And the process is always very time bound. So, you know, we were probably on the 3rd round of tests, like deeper and deeper, because also with our medical system, they can't dive that deep right at the get-go. They have to do it bit by bit. That's one of the issues. So we were doing the bit by bit and getting deeper and deeper into it, when at that point she was still befuddled because all my test results were coming back in the normal, if not really good range, based on the depth of the testing that we get with our MSP system. So we were probably, I was about to start getting into much deeper, and, you know, we'll go private and dive into it that way to get the data that we needed to help determine what was going wrong here. And that's when I got the diagnosis with, I got a bad mammogram to start. And then you go back and they call you in for another procedure, which is ultrasound and a 3D mammogram. And then that's when they said, okay, now we need to do biopsies. And that's when it starts getting freaky, because of my timing. I got right at the Christmas rush. And they couldn't get me in. They wanted to get me in within a few days for the biopsies. And they couldn't. I had to wait all the way over Christmas and New Year's. So I got to say, I went a bit buggy. And I sought a solution, like an herbal solution for that, because that was very depressing and I was acting out, which isn't me either. And I recognized that and went, I need to do something. And I was looking for St. John's wort, and they didn't have any, and I couldn't think of what the name was. And the woman that I've been dealing with at Whole Foods for since they opened, like since the old Capers in West Van, Susan, she's there. So she knows her stuff. And she said, well, take a look at this, give this a consideration and maybe try it. And it's 5-HTP. Take that with B. And then within 3 days, it was calming me down, which is what I really needed. And I didn't want to take a drug. So I went that path, and it worked for me beautifully. So it just sort of helped take that edge off, so you can actually experience real emotions instead of fear and all of that doubt and unknown. And you don't know what's going on, because now you're waiting, and then you go in for the biopsies and you got to wait again. And actually the crazy thing, I had 2 tumors and they were only going to biopsy one. And I said, pardon me, you have me here? You're doing both? And they said, well, they'll take 4 samples. I said, no, they took 24. I said, do it. Like, we're here. What's the difference? It's like, if it hurts me, I'll put some ice on it. But I want you to find out now. I don't want to have to come back and go back through this again and again and again. That's time. So we did.
And stress as well.
Yeah, and if you advocate for yourself and you go, well, look at what am I going to do? I'm going to come back again, and because it's 2 or 3 times. No, so let's just get it figured out here. Get all the tissue you need, and so we did that. And the diagnosis then is it's isolated breast cancer. No problem. We're just going to remove the tumors, and you're good to go. Yeah, no.
Okay, so I have a few pieces that you touched on there that I think are so important. So number one, you were making calls as well. So here you are. So, when they said, we're just going to biopsy the one, you're like, no, do it all. Like, let's get all the information that we can. And I think this is the most important thing. A lot of patients don't realize that they can do that they can actually, question. And I teach my students, when you go into an appointment, you need to have a list of questions prepared in advance. But then also while you're in there, take a notebook and a pen and write notes down. And you can email afterwards, you can call back afterwards, you can say, actually, no, I've thought about it, or I've done a bit of research and this is what I want. And people need to know that they can advocate for themselves as well. Even if their gut might say, well, I'm not a doctor and I don't know, and these are the specialists, and but a lot of times, just like you said, is doctors won't often go deep right at the very forefront, to whether it's to run the test, whether it's to, do extra procedures. I remember having a friend who, she had a deviated septum in her nose, but then she also had another issue on the other side of her face. And they're like, if you're opening up my face, why wouldn't you do both at the same time? And the doctor was like, oh yeah, I guess we could do that. And, he would never, ever have suggested that. But, by, asking these questions, and a lot of us are intimidated to do that, intimidated to ask questions, intimidated to question, what they're saying, and question their authority, which comes across as power and then power over. And it doesn't have to be that way. For anybody in the audience, go find somebody, even if you're not the person who feels like you can question. I've had clients who are too scared. They're just too scared. But then what they'll do is call me and say, can you come to this appointment with me? And can you ask questions? Because they know I'm not going to hesitate. So people can do that, because there's a wonderful book called How Doctors Think. And at the end of the day, doctors are just human beings. They're human beings. They, some of them are very creative thinkers, and other people are just very task oriented. Like, they're like, we need to biopsy the tumor. They're not thinking, well, let's gather data. They're not researchers and scientists. So you can help them be those things. And actually, you can save a lot of time. You can save a lot of money, and you can save your life too by doing that. That's what that book, How Doctors Think. That book is so important. We'll put the link below as well, because it teaches you how to be that advocate. And I'm guessing you probably hadn't read that book before all of this happened, but you were already, there's some part of you that is just innately probably disposed to be that way, to ask those questions, which I think is quite remarkable, which is why I say you're a healing hero. Oh. There is another part about what you mentioned as well, when you were in the hospital having your mammogram. Now, were you getting your yearly mammogram or what was it, every 2 years at that point?
It was every 2 years at that point, which was really, and like I would say to anybody, mammograms aren't the best. You're better off to get a thermogram for sure. But if that's out of your financial reach, get a mammogram every year. Do not let them put you on a 2-year thing. That's how fast these tumors grew.
Yeah. And was there, at the point when you went in for your mammogram and for this like bad mammogram, was there any correlation? Were you thinking anything was related to the fatigue and everything at that point?
Absolutely not. No, not until long after. It took a long time to put all the pieces of the puzzle together. And also just, a point when you talk about the emotionality of all this, when I came out of that second consult with my doctor, like I got called in after the second, the 3D mammogram and ultrasound, my doctor called me and they wouldn't have the conversation with me. So I knew what was coming. I just didn't know how bad or what degree or whatever. So, I knew that they would want to take biopsies. After the biopsies, when they told me that, yes, it is cancer, I did not take my partner into that appointment, and I should have. Because you go deaf. Like you literally go deaf. You don't hear everything. And I'm so fortunate that with my doctor and with the medical assistant that runs the office, they are very caring people. They got on it immediately and had me in for those, after the 3D mammograms and everything. They got me into the biopsies as fast as they could. The whole system did. And then after that, they got me into surgery as fast as they could. Like this, we kept this process moving, because the longer you sit on it, or if you delay, or if you let an appointment lapse, the more emotional damage it's going to do to you, because you need to keep moving. And that's the best advice. And take somebody into those appointments with you. If you get the minute you get somebody a call back on a mammogram, take somebody to every appointment after that, because you actually lose it. You don't think you do. I'm a pretty high functioning person when it comes to things like this, but I'm sure I missed a lot of what they had to say.
And this part is so absolutely crucial, that having somebody there in the appointment with you, to listen for you, to take notes for you, and you can instruct them to do that. Like, I want you to record the appointment. I want you to do that so you can listen to it again, so that you don't, because we cannot remember all of these things when we're in a state of shock. Basically, our amygdala is fired up, and that's the fight and flight center of the brain, which means that all further learning in that moment is shut down. So taking in new information, processing information, making decisions, all of those things completely get shut down. So people need to remember to absolutely bring someone in. That's a really, really good piece of advice. And a lot of times people want to go it alone as well. They're like, no, I can just go in and I'll get the information first and then I'll share it with my family later. Absolutely not. You need to have a community around you in these moments. Now, I want to go back to what you said earlier too about when you first started getting this information, but you couldn't get in yet for the biopsy and for those initial appointments, and this was happening over Christmas. People need to remember this and what you did, because the fact that you looked at the stress and you recognized in yourself that you were behaving a little bit differently as a result of the stress, as a result of having to wait over Christmas. I mean, it's already a stressful time. But when it comes to our body and disease, when we have stress, it suppresses our immune system further. And if you are in a situation where you have cancer, and especially if it's an aggressive cancer, that moment between potentially being diagnosed and then the actual diagnosis is a very, very stressful time. So I love that you went to Whole Foods and that you went to the person who knew you and that you asked for that. You could have said, sure, they don't have St. John's wort. Okay, I'm not going to get it. I'm not going to take anything. But again, you kept looking further and asking those questions. And we're going to put the link below of what you took, and I'll add some additional things that people can take and do when they find themselves in a stressful situation. Because I just went through that this summer because I found a lump in my breast, which I haven't podcast on this, but it turned out to not be a lump. It was actually a rib that was out, but it was pushing forward into my breast. Wow. And made it feel like it was everybody who touched it said there's definitely a massive lump there. And I didn't feel like my rib was out. I didn't know, so I scheduled, and of course I called my girlfriend who had been diagnosed with cancer, and I was like, what do I do? And this is coming from the person who instructs people on what to do. But in that fight and flight center where I'm now like highly stressed, I wasn't able to make decisions, but I knew that I could ask somebody else. So just by going to somebody else, extending your community, and for me, it's especially frightening because of the work that I do, that if people say, well, this is Nicolette and she eats well and she does all of these things and then she gets cancer. So I had that extra layer of stress being like, what do I tell the world if I'm diagnosed? Well, I tell them that I'm human. I tell them there's many different reasons for cancer, but so I ended up going, and she said, Nikki, you know what to do. What would you do? What would you tell somebody to do? And I said, well, I'd say go in, make an appointment with the doctor, go in and get a thermography exam, go in and do that. And so I did. And luckily, the doctor noticed right away it was a rib out of place, nothing showed up, but she did say, hey, you know what? You have a spot on the other breast that I'm concerned about. It doesn't feel like a lump. It doesn't, and she said, but it's very red in this one particular place. And in the thermography, they're looking for yellows, blues, greens, but if it reaches the oranges and reds, and bright yellows, that's really highly active. And it shows inflammation and heat, and a lot of blood clustering, which can happen around breast tumors and tumors in the body. So, and just to summarize what happened, because I know people are going to be like, what were the final results? So anyway, I did a follow-up 3 months later, but in those 3 months, I put myself strictly on the Gerson therapy, which is what I teach my clients to do. So I put myself on Gerson therapy. I did that, and I went back for my next results. And of course, everything was clear. And they were so surprised, because normally what happens in a thermography exam is they're getting baseline data. So once you get the first one, they want to make sure nothing changes. And so and that's a good sign. If nothing changes, and if you have red spots that stay the same forever, that's wonderful. In my case, all the red spots went away, the orange spots went away, the yellow spots went away, everything was gone. And they actually asked me, they're like, how did this happen? We never see this happen. And I said, well, I did, I changed my diet. I amplified my diet, and I really, really was stringent with it on all of these different areas. I took high dose iodine and the potassium, and I got rid of I don't eat sodium anyway, but I really was extra special and careful. And of course it went away, and she was like, oh my gosh, we need to learn about this, because they don't see that happen in thermography results. But when you're in that fight or flight center, and this is where we'll make a whole list of things that you can do, including your suggestions and what you did as well, but meditation and yoga and breathing and talking it out with people and letting people know, like, hey, I'm scared right now, like it's Christmas time and I know we're all supposed to be celebrating, but just expressing the fear as well is really important. So I just want to acknowledge you and say that's amazing that you went ahead and did that. And I think that's also another priceless piece of advice alongside taking someone to the appointment with you. Okay, so then let's go ahead further and learn more about what you did. So you had the biopsy, you went in for the surgeries, and what happened at this point? You
Go
followed
in for surgery number one. Go in for surgery number one, and it's supposed to be easy peasy. We're going to get it out. You don't need chemotherapy. You don't need radiation. You don't need anything. No drugs, no after drugs, no nothing. We're just going to take them out. You're going to be fine. So
they said that you're going to be fine.
Get the surgery, go to see the oncologist, and because that was supposed to be the case, John, my partner, was traveling that day because we weren't supposed to be getting any bad news now, were we? So he's getting on a plane, and I'm getting the worst news you can get, and that is that it's invasive. It's not isolated. And so I'm sitting there by myself and with the oncologist, and poor John's catching a plane, and I'm giving him this news. And I'm going, you know what, go anyway. I just need the week by myself. I really need to just chill, meditate, do some deep breathing, be by myself. And just sort of chill out. I don't need anybody hovering around me going, are you okay? So I said, you go away and I'll be fine. So it was actually the best choice for me. Not necessarily for everybody, but I just really needed to take a deep breath, and that deep breath was 4 or 5 days. Because it was really a real shocker. And it was very much a big shocker for him as well. So he's at the other end of the phone going, and I'm saying, no, go, that's the best thing you can do right now. So it was probably harder on him than me, I'm going to say, because he couldn't be there to see, am I okay? So I just, as I say, I needed to chill. So I did that, and I did the meditation and deep breathing, and just, so a lot of self-care in that week to just let it calm down. And that news to calm down and go, okay, then take that deep breath, and here we go again. So another operation. And that one was even more invasive because now they're doing lymph nodes, and they're doing, and they're taking a lot more tissue, and they're, so it's, and the recovery from that one. So now you're a couple more operations, a couple more rounds of antibiotics. And here we go again. So, and the worst thing that you can do. So get through that and get into recovery. And now, the diagnosis after that, or the treatment plan after that, is no chemotherapy, thankfully, but radiation and some pretty heavy dosages. So for a long period, it was a full month every day. And I would never advise just to dive into that one. I actually got threatened into it. So I was not impressed, and I'm actually I'm not very thrilled about it. Because,
so can you explain what that looks like? Because I know that there's a lot of different, after having worked with hundreds of clients and, helping them through these phases and, going from, symptoms being not good to being diagnosed, and then having to, talk through their treatment options, and, getting them to, know that they consider multiple treatment options. Like, we're not against chemo or radiation or surgery. Like, you do that to give your body a chance, so that when you want to make the other complementary and dietary and alternative choices, it gives your body a chance to catch up, build up the body's resilience to disease. But that takes time. Like, that takes a few months. If you don't have a few months, then that's when surgery, chemo, and radiation are super important. But just maybe if you can share your story about what that looked like to feel threatened into something, because I think that there's now something called humane medicine, which is a field of medicine that's starting because of the fact that there are so many doctors that do wear these power suits and say, well, if you don't do this, this can happen. Or, I'm the only specialist you need to see. You don't need a second opinion. I've been doing this for 30 years, and, don't Google anything because I'm the specialist and Google can't teach you anything. Like, there's so many things that I've heard doctors say, or, they say, I've never met anybody, like, diet doesn't have anything to do with health, or, like, it's absolutely incredible, or there's no science on meditation. I'm like, well, you just haven't read the hundreds of thousands of articles that have been published, scientifically proven by your peers, medical doctors and scientists who've gone to the same universities as you, but they just haven't read the science. So then they say the science doesn't exist, which is complete bullshit. Excuse my language, but it's like, just because you haven't done the research doesn't give you the right to say that it doesn't exist. So what did that look like for you when you were feeling, threatened?
So I didn't feel well enough to undertake any more treatment at the time and I told the oncologist that, I said, I don't think I'm healthy enough to undergo anything. I said, besides which, I don't know, I need to research this, and I need to talk to some people, and I need to do my own research, and I need to talk to others. Medical practitioners, naturopaths, and alternative medicine, to see if this is really the path I should be taking. She said, if you do not take this as scheduled, we as BC Cancer will not treat you anymore. There's the threat.
Yeah.
So I caved. Because I didn't know what else I could do at that point. I really didn't. And as it turns out, I made the wrong choice for sure, because I had my DNA tested, not the 23andMe or the Ancestry, but I had some more serious and in-depth DNA testing done for health. It's all about health. It's not about disease. It's about how do you work with your body, just like you do, to make it function better. What do you feed it to actually work with your unique DNA, which is your weaknesses? And so the thing is that I got that DNA test done partway through my radiation, because that was my first opportunity, my first exposure and opportunity. And when I had it done, it basically, radiation's poison anyway. To me, it's like 10 times poison. Same as antibiotics, by the way. So antibiotics for most people aren't as bad as they are for me. So which is why it took my system down so badly. So now that I understand that, going forward, I have a lot of other things in my toolkit, and will find other things in my toolkit to deal with my health issues. And I've got, and I've gotten more curious, and I have a lot more resources. So that's how that's helped me. But I didn't know that going in. I just knew like intuitively that this was not a good thing for me. And I just, as I said, felt that I was not well enough to undertake radiation, especially the heavy dosage that they had set up and for the duration that they did. So I just sort of took it on the chin and, did the deep breathing and got out there and did it and got myself there every day, all the way from West Van to BC Cancer, which is buses, trains, and whatever, and walking, which was good because I couldn't take a chance that I got stuck on the bridge with the traffic
Right.
and miss my time slot, because then you could be waiting 4 hours, because they've got that radiation machine is going all day. Every 15 minutes, somebody new is in there. And yeah, it's a machine. And so I did that, and then I knew at some point I'd need rides. So, or no, actually, I didn't believe that. I thought, oh, I could go through this, because everything I'd heard from anybody I talked to was radiation isn't that bad. Well, that's somebody talking. That's not me talking. And it's on any doctor I've talked to since. They go, no, radiation will take you down. It will suck your energy out of you. It'll smack you down. And that's what it did to me. So as I got further in, and the deal with radiation is it's a gift that keeps on giving. So even though you've stopped your treatments, it continues to hit you for quite a while. And then there's other things, and they don't tell you. You've really got to be a lot more proactive in that system, because you don't really realize what's happening to your body. And there's a lot to do with saline wraps on the radiation zone to avoid the third-degree burns that I ended up getting. And even though I treated my skin before and during, I got minor compared to most people, but they hurt like hell. And, it's like, they go, oh, yeah, well, this happens all the time. Well, why didn't you tell me this before? And saline wraps would help calm it down and, help avoid it. So you've really you've got to talk to some people about what was really the process, because people go, oh, it's okay, you're going to be fine, but they don't tell you the ins and outs of it. And I think that's
what's
important.
saline wrap? Yeah, how did you do the saline wrap?
What you do is you make your own saline solution with distilled water and at room temperature, and gauze, sterile gauze. And what you're doing is the radiation zone, you're soaking these, and then you're wrapping your radiation zone in them. And it feels like, even though they're at room temperature, it feels like they're freezing. Well, that's because your skin's burning from the inside out.
Yeah.
And it was really freaky when this burn came up. And then when they put these on, like, I thought, my God, you put freezing stuff on. They said, no, Marina, it's room temperature. And I said, well, why didn't you people tell me about this before, so that I could be doing it long before I needed it? Yeah. Because then you're keeping that heat down through the process. And you probably won't get, some women burn very, very severely and have severe discoloration that lasts for years. As I said, I treated my skin all the way along with some creams that I have, and that I got approved by the oncologist and by all the radiologists, and to keep my skin hydrated and moisturized. So I was very fortunate in that sense, but I still got one very big, nasty third-degree burn that had to be dealt with. So.
Yeah. And what people need to realize about the third-degree burns that people get from the radiation. I've had clients who, come to me after getting radiation treatment, and then they come to me to try and figure out like how to heal the body, because, they go in for radiation treatment for uterine or cervical cancer, and it actually ends up burning their bladders and wrecking their bladders and their rectum, because it goes right through, and then they have no ability to eliminate, and then they have to get catheters put in, they have to do all of that. I mean, that was the side effect of getting the radiation, but then now they have no process of elimination. So it is a challenging one. And people have to realize that when you have a burn inside your body and on the skin, I mean, it's your largest organ. Your skin next to your microbiome, which is now considered an organ in itself, but your skin is your largest organ. And so if any part of it is damaged, your whole entire immune system, your endocrine system, like your repair system is going in, and that takes energy. So when you say like it still continues to suck your energy long after the radiation is done, well, it's because now the body's trying to go in and heal this massive organ. And that takes mitochondrial energy, ATP, it takes nutrients, it takes, absolutely everything. It means your liver needs to function to get rid of the damaged cells, and then to repair and make new cells. So That's why it's so energy intensive on the body. And, people, anybody who's listening out there and you want to find out the history of radiation, the truth about cancer has a really great, one of the 9 videos talks about the history of radiation and how it was discovered. You can look this up online. There's books written on it as well. And just get to understand how it first came to be in the conventional medical system. And then also just to learn more about it. Again, not to say that radiation, you should not do it, but you need to know the ups and downs and all the side effects of it. And then you also need to know what you can do in conjunction. It's like getting chemotherapy as well. I had one client who, it was amazing. She didn't lose her fingernails and her toenails like all the other women who were getting treatment alongside her. And that's because she put basically these ice gloves and they're cooling gloves and cooling pads on her feet and on her scalp. And it was incredible. And so she saved her extremities from this damage from the chemotherapy that it normally causes. Nobody else in the room thought she was crazy. Even the doctors thought she was crazy, but you know what? She kept all her fingernails. And toenails. So there's so many things you can do alongside, in addition to like making changes to your diet, meditating, yoga, like we talked about. So you went through the radiation, and then what happened after that?
Well, and actually, when I was going through radiation, I did do a lot of things that were to help me, and one of them was I juiced.
Okay.
After talking to you and reading all the Gerson books and the resources online that you'd sent me and shared with me, I juiced all the way through radiation. So because I didn't have the ability to get into it very seriously, and that I found somebody in West Vancouver who does all organic juices, and his vegetables never hit the fridge, and they're fresh daily. And so I would buy daily, and John actually juiced with me. So it's a little bit more expensive way to go, but it worked because I just didn't have the energy and the time and the capacity to take that on. It would have been more stressful. So I did that. I juiced until about 2 p.m. And then I'd stick with light meals like raw vegetables and, steamed vegetables and some, like some fish or something. So I did that all the way through to take some pressure off of my system. And once I got my DNA done partway through, I understood even more how important that is, and then eliminated a bunch of foods because, not everything was good for my system, such as my body doesn't process monounsaturated fats very well. So out go avocados, nuts, and seeds.
Which is so interesting because on Gerson, the Gerson therapy, which is what I teach my clients, as you know, it was developed over about 100 years ago by Dr. Max Gerson. He was a German Jewish doctor who lived in Germany. And he originally designed the diet for migraines. But when he eliminated those monounsaturated fats, when he eliminated all the nuts and seeds and those really high intensity amino acids, so people call it protein, but high protein foods. And then he really stuck to exactly what you just said, like those steamed vegetables, lots of raw vegetables, lots of fruits, lots of, really an abundance in the produce, the fruits and vegetables, whether it's cooked or raw, it doesn't matter, but no added oils, none of those high fats, so no avocados as well. And people say, what? But avocados are so healthy. Yeah, avocados are really healthy in a body that is optimal and can digest that. But I mean, Absolutely. It's a very high protein, a high fat food. And for the ratio of minerals and vitamins that you're getting in comparison to the high fat, it's just not a good payoff versus if you eat, I don't know if you're eating potatoes, but we eat a lot of potatoes in the Gerson therapy, but lots of squash and root vegetables and lots of greens and that they have fat in them. People think that, all of those foods don't contain any fat and everybody wants to take the refined fish oils and the refined everything. But at the end of the day, all of our fruits and vegetables have fat in them as well. So we don't have to be taking high fat. And especially when Max Gerson found when somebody was diagnosed with cancer, the number one thing that they needed to eliminate was the high protein, high fat foods. And that's because the body didn't have the ability to break it down and digest them because the digestion's already shot by that point.
Well, exactly. Yeah. And that's so, taking those away, there's, so that's the bigger thing for me, that, okay, 25% of the population can process dairy after the age of 3. I'm not one of those. So we have absolutely no dairy in our house. We used to love the cheese, but it's totally out. Neither of us miss it. and we're both feeling so much better for it. But I've always had a problem with dairy, but more, the softer it got, the more of a problem I had with it. If it was a hard cheese, not as much problem. It's something about science and chemistry. But eliminating all of it and getting that out of our diet, I can feel the relief. My system feels the relief when I started eating for my DNA. So it's, green smoothies in the morning and no protein powders. And like as you said, and what you taught me very clearly, if it's got a label, it's processed.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and we very much adhere to that. If it's got a label, it's processed, and we very rarely eat anything with a label. We even bread, we'll have bread maybe a piece a week, like a really good healthy spelt bread or the whole grain bread or something, but not very rarely, and organic only. And just switching to organic and making sure that all of the vegetables are really well washed. I could just feel my system just going, oh, like it just, you can feel the relief. And now my body craves that green smoothie in the morning.
That's
like it just craves it. It's like, okay, where's that? It's sort of like people crave their coffee, except when I'm finished drinking my smoothie, I actually feel better.
Yeah.
I don't think they do.
Yeah, no. And we've seen that from having the green mustache, that we'd have people who'd come in normally and they'd have a Starbucks in one hand because it's right next to us. And then they'd order their green drink. And, and then eventually they started coming in being like, well, if I start off with the green drink, I never ever have to go to Starbucks and get a coffee. And I'm like, exactly, because you are oxygenating your blood. You are bringing nutrients in that feed your brain. So your brain becomes alive and active. And then their body starts craving it. And then they're like, oh my gosh, and they didn't have those 2:00 dips anymore. And so I loved watching that transition of like high coffee and lots of coffee, a little bit of juice. And then it went like this really, really quickly. And then all of a sudden they're not drinking their coffee anymore, which is pretty fantastic. Now, how did you find out, because there's so many people doing DNA testing, and there's like you mentioned the 23andMe, which is, sure, a great test to get a bit of information, but it's not really the robustness. So how did you find out about the DNA testing?
Okay, so I belong to an organization called, I'm a participant, very active participant in an organization called SheEO. And we love SheEO. Yeah, so we support female entrepreneurs, ventures, founders, developers, creators, innovators. And we support them by creating a fund every year through radical generosity. So we contribute into the fund. We do not get anything back except the joy of giving and helping. And female only led ventures and entrepreneurs can apply to this fund. This year we had 450. So some incredible women out there doing some incredible things. Lois Naherney is a founding member of SheEO, and she was also a venture in 2015 applying for the funds for her company DNA Power. And when I saw that, this was before my cancer journey at all, I said, I have to get together with you. This is fascinating me. I just loved what she had to say. And it just opened my eyes up to another aspect of health, because I really do believe in diagnostics and data. And I'm proof of the pudding that I don't fit into the normal just eat whole foods, which is what I find a lot of practitioners do, because maybe they don't know more, maybe they weren't taught more, whatever. But for me, that wasn't working, and I tried it and it wasn't working. So with DNA, it's like, here's my roadmap to what my body works with and doesn't work with. And if I stick with it, for me, it's brassica vegetables. Load up on them. And not root vegetables so much, and not potatoes, but tons of broccoli and cauliflower and yeah. So, and we have, what we do is we have a chunky salad in the fridge at all times with all of those cut up in it, raw. And then add kale or whatever you want to it, or maybe some roasted squash, or maybe this or that. So we eat Buddha bowls or glory bowls, whatever you want to call them, every day. And keep the dressing low.
Yeah.
Stay away from that fat. So we're getting better at it. So we're a work in progress. And finding out what's working, because I've found that I'm still, like, I'm getting very tired in the afternoon, so I need protein. So I'm just looking, researching protein sources, what are the best that I can start working with and have handy for a snack. Instead of, people are going for energy bars or whatever, I need to make my own, because I don't eat sugar either. So it's a work in progress. Pardon me?
You mean refined sugar, or what kind of sugars?
I don't put any other added sugars in anything of
Like
any
no
sort.
date, no dates,
Dates,
no.
because of some of your recipes, I've used them in dressings and I love it. And I need to learn some other things that I can do. And I also need to learn a snack I can carry with me so I don't crash. Like, is it a fig? Is it dates? What is it? But it's not nuts for me, remember? No nuts and seeds.
Yeah.
So most people can just take a handful of nuts with them. It doesn't work for me.
Yeah. And
So,
so many people, I've met so many people who just think that nuts and seeds are the answer. And the minute we get them off the nuts and seeds, because if we think about it, all we have to do is look at the farmers and how they raise their cows. And the best way to fatten up a cow is to just feed it tons of grains and tons of seeds, right? Because it's very energy intensive. So it makes that little calf grow massive in a very short period of time. Versus cows in nature, the ones that, bulls, buffalo, horses, it doesn't matter what animal that are grazing animals, they eat grass. And sure, they're getting a little bit of seed in there for sure, a little bit, but they're predominantly eating the green stuff.
yeah,
And they're eating the stems and the shoots and all of that, and so and they're not growing exponentially like that. It's not triggering that hormone growth factor as significantly as when you have the nuts and seeds and grains. And especially when you have cancer, you do not want to stimulate fast growing anything.
no,
So the minute we remove those nuts and seeds, it's amazing. It slows everything down. Your body can regenerate, your telomeres grow longer, and your telomeres are your indicators of your longevity and your health. They can actually measure your telomere length, and they can tell you if you are a 60-year-old, 40-year-old, right? Or if you're a 30-year-old, 40-year-old. And they see this in kids now where they're measuring their telomeres, and these kids have telomeres the length of 60 and 70-year-olds. These kids
wow.
that are living with processed food. Yeah, so we'll put the link to a really great book about telomeres. And people need to understand that, because the great thing is a plant-based whole food diet that's probably specific to your DNA as well. But I mean, even just a plant-based whole food diet where you minimize all your nuts and seeds, even just get rid of them. You can eat the sprouted seeds; those are great. Like if you have that, and but not the actual seed itself. And then what happens is your telomeres just go and they lengthen again, and then you'll have 10-year-olds that are actually designed to be 10-year-olds and not 60-year-olds.
That's
So
cool.
it's very, very cool. So
I'd like to learn
you
more
heard
about
about,
that and also about sprouted seeds. Yeah, because there's definitely nutrition in them, but it's not the way they are. Your body has trouble processing it. So,
yeah, it's the green shoots that are what are like super, super healthy. It has the chlorophyll, it's got all of that, and that's what stimulates growth in your body. And it's essentially the sunshine. So we eat sunshine. Okay, that a lot of people don't realize that it's that photosynthesis process which creates the glucose and the sugars in our fruits and vegetables, and that's what our mitochondria need. And if you're not getting enough of those naturally occurring sugars, the glucose, to fuel your body and your cells, you're not going to grow the mitochondria, and it's the mitochondria that creates the energy. So people think that when they eat the seeds, they're getting more protein and amino acids and fats. Yeah, you are, but you're not eating sun food, because the seeds go under the earth,
right,
right?
that's interesting. That's a whole new bent on it because I know when we did some consultations and through my journey, it's like the closer it is to you, the better it is for you, and the easier it is to harvest, the better it is for you. So I understand that, but this is a whole new twist with the sun foods. I like it.
Yeah, if you think about it like that, and who says it really well is, I know that Sherry Strong had put us in touch, I believe, right?
Yes.
And yeah, and Sherry Strong is such a fabulous woman. She's got a great TED Talk. Everybody, please listen to it. She's got a wonderful book called Return to Food. And then she also has a brand new company called Sweet Freedom. So it's all about how you can still like eat this decadent, delicious, amazing, food and foods and beverages, but the sweets come from naturally occurring foods as opposed to all the refined sugars and processed junk that's out there, and all the chemical preservatives and sugars that give us that high, right? They're those dopamine drips. They really get us really high, but they do nothing to our immune system and to our endocrine system and our repair system. So Sherry, please, and we'll put the links down to her as well, but she connected us. But I also love how she says it. She's like, if you look far and wide out there on this beautiful planet that we have, you're going to see a ton of water, but you're also going to see all these greens, and it's all those greens that we can eat, and they're in abundance compared to the nuts and seeds. You see a million greens on the trees and you only see a few nuts and seeds, right? So, and it's the same thing with the meat that we eat. So if you actually live by those principles of eat in abundance what is in abundance, you'll actually be stimulating your health, and really creating health and longevity in your body. So after you went through the radiation treatment, then what were some of the things that you changed your diet then? Because now you had that DNA testing as well, and you started to eat more for your body type,
Yeah.
for your DNA. And
Yeah.
that was with Lois Naherney.
Yeah.
Am I saying that right? And
Yeah.
she's with DNA Power. We'll put the link below if anybody wants
Perfect.
to go ahead
Yeah.
join her program and get that done. And she's a fabulous woman, full of so much energy. She's just all about helping people improve their life. So you worked with her, and did you have to go back a few times to get the DNA?
The DNA, her test is the simplest. Like I've heard what people had to do for those other ones, and oh my God, I would never have done it. Like it grossed me out. But it's a simple swab with DNA Power. So it's very simple. You do the swab, you get it mailed back off, and it's like once you've ordered it, it comes with a stamped self-addressed envelope. You just put it in, it goes back to the office. They process it. So the reporting that comes out of it is anywhere from, I did the whole package, which is everything. It's called Total Power. And that's because I have a chronic illness or had a chronic illness. For most people, you can just start with the nutrition and supplement vitamin 1. And that's going to tell you what I've learned too is like, just taking a supplement because you think or because so-and-so's taking it or this or that or it's a fad or whatever. Definitely not the way to go. I've done a little bit of that. I think I'm a lot more thoughtful than that, but I follow the path just like everybody else. I've learned not to do that. And right now I'm just down to supplements that I need to support my DNA. Once I get my system settled into that, then I'll look at other things like detoxification. What can I do to add in to do that? And so, basically things that will help shore me up and help with some of my side effects of radiation, which I have quite a few. Because it dries your cells out. It affects every cell in your body. And when I got floaters in my eye, like very serious floaters, which are black. They look like spiders coming through your eye. And before we were about to take a trip, and I thought, I can't catch a plane with this, that you can lose your retina. So I went to a local ophthalmologist and I lucked out. This woman is amazing. And she, we were talking about, okay, this, that, and she said, well, anything changed in the last year since you had your surgeries? And I said, yeah, I've had breast cancer. And she said, chemotherapy or radiation? And I said, radiation. She said, well, this looks like a side effect of radiation because it dries out the gel in the back of your eye, which causes floaters. The floaters can grab your retina and rip it off. So I'm sitting there going, and so she went as deep as she could, but here she is, she's going, okay, floaters, what you need to do, and because of the radiation, is take way more omega-3s. How much are you taking now? And I said 2,000 milligrams a day based on my DNA, right? She said double it because now you have an eye issue. You need those omega-3s. And so I've doubled it and they've calmed down. And I got into the retina specialist very fortunately. And here, this is where medical people differ. So she's all over it. She understands DNA. She wants to learn more. And I go to the retina specialist. That's all he knows. And I said, well, my ophthalmologist suggested that this would very well be a byproduct of radiation. And he said, well, no, you got radiated in your breast, not in your eye. And I just thought, really? Did I just hear this? No, I can't sit here. I know. He goes, well, it was nowhere near your eye. Well, the bottom line is it's only the left eye. It was only the left side. So the radiation didn't travel as bad to this side, but it's definitely from the radiation. I did not have this issue before. I've never had it in my life. And so he's going, and when he said, well, it's nowhere near your eye, I just thought, I can't even have this conversation with this man. And you will run across medical practitioners that are like that. Just sit there, smile, take their advice, do whatever, and go find somebody else immediately. As the minute you walk out the door, don't upset them because in this case, this guy is like one of the top retina specialists. He knows retinas. I don't want to upset him because I'm going to have to go back to him someday to make sure. As a matter of fact, I have to go back within a year for him to check on it. And if he said if I have any other change in it, just to call them and not to go to emergency, which is how I hacked the medical system to get into him as I went through the emergency department. So, I hacked the medical system to get there because I needed to do it. So he just said, this next time, just call our office. We will make sure to see you because I'm proactive. And they like that. If you're proactive with your help, they like it. If you don't ask questions, they're not going to answer because they don't know what you want to know or need to know. They're going to tell you what they need to tell you. Yeah. They're waiting for questions. Ask them. Just ask. They really love it when you ask them.
And tell another good point as well that I want to stress for people is I love that when you hack the medical system, and it can be as simple as asking questions, but it can also be as simple as telling your specialist or doctor what you want the outcome to be. So I teach my students because and doctors want to hear this as well, because I've had so many doctors who actually are fully into nutrition. They're fully into alternative healing practices, complementary healing practices like meditation and yoga and acupuncture and physio and chiro and, all of those things. But if they get a patient in and they only have like 7.5 minutes with you, maybe some doctors will give you 15 minutes, but then they often don't get reimbursed for that time. So they have about 7.5 minutes with you. And if you go in saying, hey, I'm sick, I want to get better, and I want these symptoms to be gone, essentially, then they'll be like, great, here's a drug for you. Right? It'll take 2 weeks and, and if your symptoms aren't gone, come back, we'll give you another drug. But if you go in there and saying, hey, doc, listen, I do not want antibiotics. I do not want to end up in surgery. I do not want to end up, with whatever the, the conventional treatment is, but I need to figure out how to get rid of my symptoms. That opens up the conversation with your doctor that allows them to say, write down, this patient did not want the pharmaceutical drug, or this patient did not want surgery. So then they'll say things like, hey, how much water are you drinking? Maybe you need to drink more water, or more, start juicing, or, go see acupuncture, or, whatever it is, let's get you in with another specialist who can help you. But then you're going to need to start that conversation again with the specialist. Hey, this is the outcome that I want. I want to be completely healed, but if we can avoid the drugs and the antibiotics and the surgeries and the everything, can you do that? Then that doctor, it just changes everything for them. And that's actually what they want to hear. But, a lot of people go to doctors being like, fix me in 5 minutes. Give me the one pill. I want the magic solution. And so the doctors do what they're designed to do. They were trained in how to diagnose and prescribe. So you have to advocate for yourself that way. And so ask questions and tell them what you want the outcome to be like. And sometimes I've gone to a doctor, like when my daughter had meningitis, I was like, and she was vaccinated for meningitis, even though, and that's a whole nother story. But the doctors didn't even believe she had meningitis. And, by the 5th day, when I had 17 doctors who misdiagnosed her, I said, I know she's got meningitis. Tell me why she does not have it, and tell me how to get rid of it. And that changed everything. We got rushed to emergency right away. We were in emergency when this happened, but we got rushed to Lionsgate. They,
wow.
They did a spinal tap, which they could have done 5 days earlier, but I hadn't asked the right questions. I hadn't said what I want the outcome to be. But I was like, I'm not going home with a kid who's sick, and I'm not coming back tomorrow because she might not even make it to tomorrow. That's how bad she was. And so this is so important that people tell your specialist, your doctor, anybody what the outcome is, and ask lots of questions. So after you had the DNA testing, you're done radiation. So you started eating to your DNA, which I absolutely love as well. And then how did you start to feel in your body? Like, I know you talk about the fact that your cancer is estrogen positive, right? Which means you have this abundance of estrogen in your body and your body can't detoxify it.
Yeah.
I've recommended doing the coffee enemas just because a lot of people don't realize the role that the liver plays in producing, it's called sex hormone binding globulin. And what this hormone does, or what this binding globulin does, it's a protein that that gets created in your liver, and it actually binds to the estrogen and it dismantles it. And not just estrogen, but we have many different types of estrogen in our body, 3 predominantly that we talk about. But it binds to the estrogen, dismantles it, and then it allows the liver to get rid of it entirely. So the coffee, a lot of people think coffee enemas are like high colonic, that they clean out your intestines. That's not what they do. But there's also lots of other things you can do to support the liver. I mean, there's milk thistle that you can be taking daily. And what are some of the detoxification plans that you're looking at right now to help with that?
Well, I'm looking at detox baths. I'm looking at infrared saunas. I'm definitely considering the coffee enemas because I hear really good things about it. And I know a couple of people that are starting on that journey right now. Um, I can't say who they are, but so I'm just sort of waiting to see how they're feeling with it and if that's helping them with their issues. But I know that the radiation is piling up in my liver. I can feel it, and so because things just aren't processing as well as they should, so my body can't detoxify everything that's hitting it. Even though I've eliminated a lot of things like plastics, like we don't have plastics in the house. We're switching everything to glass. We don't bring plastic bags home with our food. We've got, so it's a process, and it doesn't happen overnight. And you can't even try to put yourself into doing it overnight. And I'm pretty good at this stuff, but I can't even do a whole switch over in 48 hours or a week. So it's slowly but surely I'm eliminating that and doing this. And also John would probably think I'm crazy and stop the whole parade, right? So I need him to be on board because it's about our household. It's about him being on board with it as well. So, and he's getting it. So when he watched a plastic documentary the other day, he goes, "Oh, okay, I get why you take bags." And
documentaries are so great. Like if your partner is not on board with what you're doing, just sit down with them and watch the documentary with them. Don't say anything. Don't be like, "I told you so." Just let them watch it. Let them take in the information. For other people, they need books. And some people need like really easy written, like written to grade 5 level book, and other people need really scientific books. Some people might even need a journal article. You really need to know how your partner learns, and then support them just by providing that information. Like you can even highlight a passage in a book and leave it open next to, like, on the breakfast table, and when they wake up that morning, they go down, they read one little paragraph. That is the difference between getting your partner on board or having somebody that you're battling with, as you're trying to make these changes. I also love, Marina, how you said um, this isn't going to happen overnight, so these changes, but that it's more than just your body, right? A lot of people look at detoxifying just their body, but it's the stuff that you're putting on the body, right? It's the stuff that's in your household that is, producing toxic emissions and that you're breathing in, that's having an effect on your estrogen levels and hormone levels. So I love that you're looking at that as well. So what are some of the other things that you're doing? I bet there's so many things you've come across.
Oh, upping the antioxidants for sure. The green smoothies are a big one. More vegetables is a big one. Lots of water. I use filtered water. I should be using spring water. I've got to switch that. So the things like it's tweaks here and there. It's just continually tweaking and adapting and adopting new practices around the house, best practices around the home. So it's going. We're boaters, so we're pretty much there a lot of the case anyway. Because when you're on a boat, you don't want any garbage around, and just by that mere fact, you're not having a lot of plastic and a lot of bags and extra things. It's just because you've got small confined space, but also we're not into producing garbage. So a lot of that, and also with cleaning products. I mean, our best friends right now and always have been, is baking soda, hydrogen peroxide, and Dawn detergent. If they're using it on birds, I'm sure it's going to be fine for us. I haven't done any of the science on it, but they used it to clean up the birds after the oil spills. So I'm with it now. If I can find something else, which I probably will replace at one point, but we've upped the ante with the hydrogen peroxide and baking soda. It does a miracle with so much stuff. So
yeah, you don't need all those spray bottles. You just have one spray bottle. You can put a mixture in there, spray it on things. We use just water and microfiber cloths, even though the microfiber technically is a plastic, synthetic cloth. But I mean, we've had ours for almost 20 years. And we use, after a study came out showing that they get rid of the exact same amount of bacteria and germs and, viruses and pathogens that bleach does. And so they started using it at my university where I'm doing my PhD. After the study was published. And so they use, blue cloths for the bathroom, green cloths for the kitchen, red cloths for like other surface areas, just so like the perception of contamination. But it's wonderful because it's just water and that cloth, and then you throw it in the wash machine afterwards, and they last forever. And so, that's what we use. And anytime we want something that smells good, like sometimes we'll use lemon, or we'll use like some rosemary and lemon water or something like that, and use that to spray if we really need that scent, or maybe a few aromatherapy oils that are not too too potent. Yeah, so that's wonderful that you're doing that. That's incredible. You can write a book about this, Marina, all the steps that you're
Yeah,
learning during
maybe I should probably do something because it's yeah, so it's all good. And the other one, this one I just ran across the other day through CEO, another CEO activator actually, who is a biochemist, and she lost her husband to cancer. So I was just reading her story a bit later, and I'll be seeing her tonight. But she gifted me her product, which is it's a detoxifying deodorant.
Awesome.
That's
What's the name
all.
of that
That's
company?
100% organic, and it's a very elegant product. And we should put a link in the thing because she will be coming out with more products. She's very conscious about this, and it's all about um, the things that we're using on a day-to-day basis without the nasty chemicals, and they're good for your body, and that actually will do other things like detoxify. So I'm using this, and I just read the instructions. I've had it for for about a week, and I've been using it, but it says to put it on at night as well because it's actually helping to detoxify your body. So use it twice a day. So I'm
Can
going
you
to
hold
update
up
it.
the beautiful bottle? Because it's such a beautiful bottle. I know you showed it to me earlier.
Well, this is the outer case. I mean, isn't it beautiful? That's the packaging on the outside, and then here's the actual product, and it's just beautifully
So
packaged.
beautiful. It's called Nula, right?
Called
Or Nala,
Nina,
sorry.
yeah. And
Yeah.
she's very community oriented as well. So I'm going to learn a lot more about her as as a CEO colleague. So that's great. And there's another one of our companies called Nada, and Nada is a zero waste grocery store.
I
And so
love Nada.
they're in Vancouver on West Broadway near Fraser. And they're actually, surprisingly, not a grocery store, but they're a technology company. And that's their pilot project. So if anybody wants to open up a zero waste store, you should talk to them about the technology that they're using instead of trying to create your own. And that's what they're very much about. They're very much about community within the stores, just like you are with Green Mustache Cafe. It's very much about community as well. So it's not a, so there's some great alternatives out there, and they're easy. They're not so easy to find. I'm getting exposed to a lot of them because of CEO, and I'm going to start sharing a lot more of them on my own Facebook timeline. But they're out there, and and there's people that are innovative and creating, and they need to be supported. Like try their products, seek them out, support them, and share, because that's what's going to help them thrive and survive. And we need people like this that make these
Definitely.
products.
And I love the, it's Nada, right? Nada?
Yeah, Nada. Yeah, you go there, don't you?
Yeah, definitely. And I love her story because of the fact that she was a marine biologist, and, she's young and vibrant, and she spent so much time, as a scientist studying what was happening in our oceans, and saw the amount of plastics and how devastating that was to the ocean life, to our water systems, to our endocrine system, and how that disrupts and produces estrogen buildup in our body, how, we now fish are consuming more plastic particles than they are actually consuming plankton. And so they're, of course, lower on the food chain. And so as we go to consume them, so, we have the tunas that are eating like the smaller fish that eat the smaller fish that eat the sardines and that eat the mackerel and all of that. So all of that bioaccumulates in their system, and then we eat that. So we're predominantly just eating more plastic than we are eating fish. And so that's a really big problem as well. So please, everybody, will put the link down to Nada as well, and you can check it out if you're ever in Vancouver. I'm sure they're going to have stores all across the world at one point in the future, and they'll help you set it up as well. So now you're making all of these beautiful changes, and how do you feel now? How are you feeling today?
I'm getting better all the time. As I say, I'm having some challenges with detoxifying the radiation. So I have some side effects from that I'm dealing with, and one of them ended up in a very nasty sinus infection. So I'm just recovering from that. And that took 6 weeks.
Right.
But it's all got to do with how, the radiation and your system dries out, and you become more susceptible to things because your immune system's broken. And so I have to be a lot more careful. So the more I have to watch my energy, I have to make sure I get my rest, and I have to make sure that I'm eating properly and supplementing properly. So it's like getting through that. I probably went down harder than most people would, and literally couldn't function. So now I'm getting my energy back, and I'm really, I feel better every day. I've got more energy every day, but it's all about eating for my DNA and basically now the next step is taking more on, like more ways of detoxifying and more ways of supporting my immune system, you know, making some fermented foods myself. Kombucha is not your answer. It's basically just pop in disguise.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, a lot of people too, like if you're not healthy, like a lot of people love to gravitate to these one answer solutions. So they're like, I drink 4 liters of kombucha a day, but it doesn't work that way. Sure. You know what? Have the kombucha if you already have switched to that beautiful, abundant, you know, plant-based whole food diet. You've had the DNA test. You are eating for your, you know, DNA type. You have, you know, considered ways to detoxify. You've detoxified your home. You've detoxified your mind, right? Like you are managing the stress, doing all of that. And then, you know what? Have a couple glasses of kombucha every once in a while. It doesn't need to be, you're not going to reverse your cancer by drinking liters of kombucha at the end of the day. And especially when you need to read your microbiome, because everybody wants a kombucha because it's fermented. But the thing is to build your microbiome, you need a diversity of fibers and microfibers and insoluble plant-based fibers that only come from eating food. Like you need to use your jaw and your teeth, and you know, you need to use your juicer, and you need to do all of that, but you need to chew that food and get the insoluble plant-based fiber into your large intestine, which then goes on to feed the entire microbiome. And that's how you rebuild your entire microbiome, which is so important. And for sure, when you have a weakened system, the probiotics are going to help. Some fermented foods are going to help, but you know, people need to understand you have to put that, it's hard work. Would you agree?
Yeah, and you've got to be, you know, you can't just all of a sudden go on this jag. So what I did is I'm trying to integrate, and I get on it and I get off it and I get on it and I get off it. And one of them is miso. So if I'm going to have some soup, a bowl of soup, well, I can throw a teaspoon or a tablespoon of miso in there, and that's one step. And so just that's one of my tricks. It's sort of, if I'm having a hot beverage, like some soup or whatever, I'll just take the miso and put it in my portion of it instead of the whole bowl. You know, I made some pickled onions without sugar that are fabulous. So I can throw those in a salad. You know, so it's just sort of, and I'm looking for more that I can just sort of incorporate into my daily routine that I actually like and will use, and that John will eat as well. So it's just sort of that incorporating as you go. And it's, as I say, it's not going to happen overnight. And you got to do it for things that you like instead of you're trying to force yourself to like, otherwise you won't stick with it. And read labels. Like kombucha's got a label on it, and sugar's right up there as one of the top ingredients. That just feeds cancers and all kinds of other chronic illness. You know, it's just sort of that you've just got to be wise. If it's got a label, really read it and stay away from labels.
Yeah.
That's what you taught me.
Yeah, and staying away from the labels is so important. And it is, you know, we serve kombucha at our restaurant, but the reason I love serving Spark kombucha, and people will notice it when they do drink it, it's not sweet like the stuff that you get on the grocery store shelf. Right. And that's because he actively is like trying to put just enough sugar that the bacteria will eat so it'll grow. But then a lot of the kombucha companies, what they do, because it tastes a bit bitter, they'll go in and add extra sugar into it after it's been fermented, and now the bacteria are no longer there to eat and ferment further that additional sugar. So you need to, so the bacteria are taking the sugar and the glucose, and then they're exchanging it, and then they create all these other byproducts of it. That's wonderful. So please, you do need to know as well who's making your kombucha, which is really good, or any other product that's out there, because a lot of people think just because it says healthy, or just because it says fermented, or just because it says it has turmeric in it, that it's going to be healthy. But it's important to understand. So the easiest way for my clients is when I say, no label, you're good to go. Or if the label has one ingredient, then you're good to go. But make sure that you know, like if it has natural flavors, if it needs to be labeled healthy, then chances are it's probably not healthy for you. So stick to the food that Mother Nature's created and provided. So I could probably talk to you for like a gazillion years.
I know.
And we're going to have to do another podcast soon. But how I'd like to wrap up and bring this to a close is, you know, what would you say to, you know, a person, a woman, anybody who's being diagnosed and going through that right now? What are just 3 bits of advice that you could give them? You've already given so much information, but, you know, just in those early stages, when it's just happening at the very beginning, and 3 pieces of advice, and then one thing that you would have loved to have heard from somebody to support you on your journey, because people say all sorts of things when people get diagnosed.
Okay, the 3 pieces of advice is: 1, you've got to really listen to your body. You've really got to pay attention. 2, you have to be the advocate for yourself. And you know that unfortunately a lot of people take look at their physicians and their practitioners as gods. They're not. They're human beings just like you and me. And they're very smart people. That's how they got there. They want you to ask them questions. There is no questions too stupid. And so be aware of that. And if you've got a question and somebody puts you down for it, they're the ones that are wrong, not you. And 3, you know what? Self-care. You've just got to really be kind to yourself. And if you're feeling really emotional or something, it's very hard to slow down. It is. I've been there. It's very hard to slow yourself down and go, I need to calm down. It's like, yeah, how can I calm down? Like, I'm facing this. Like, no, you know, and that's like, whatever. You just really need to, whatever it is that self-care looks like for you, if it gets you in your happy place, if it's going to the beach, go there. If it's, you know, maybe it's going to the casino and listening to those machines. I don't know. Like, whatever it is, whatever your happy and your calm is and your zone is, just go find some place there. If anybody could support me in my journey, it's, I don't know, because I really wasn't that vocal about it until I sort of was well in, and I've got a big team of people that work with me in my network marketing business. So I did share with them, and they were all supported just by being loving and just carrying on and making my life easy and carrying on. So I didn't have to worry about my business, and I didn't have to. So those kind of people and those kind of things, just keep things as normal as you can, because I don't want anybody going, oh, you poor thing.
No,
I didn't hear that, but you see it in some people's like, oh, and then you see the ones that strikes fear. And the ones that struck fear actually ran and got mammograms, which I'm going, okay, I'm good for that. So the fear got you there, good. And then they shared. And so they got more people to get tested. And so that's all good. You know, your partner is a big part of it. And one thing that I can say is going through the BC Cancer Program is they check in with you every time you walk into that building about, are you being supported? Are you okay at home? Are you getting the help and support that you need? And that's a big question, because a lot of people don't. A lot of women don't. And a lot of women actually get abused going through this. So if that's one of you, go, they've got all the support there. Find somebody, find somewhere, get the support, because it's there. And you've got enough of a battle without having somebody be tough on you. You know, it's easy for me to say, I've got the dream guy, like it was amazing. He's been incredible and patient and supportive and just really took great care of me without coming in every day and going, are you okay? So he allowed me to do what I needed to do and to be as normal as I could be when I could. So it's, yeah, that's self-care is a biggie. You've got to take care of yourself.
That is beautiful. Thank you so much for this time that you have spent with us today, sharing your story, your healing journey. You truly are a healing hero. You've checked all the boxes right there. We're going to be putting this all into point form with providing the links below and providing the additional information. Is there a place where people can get to know you more? Is it Facebook? What's a good way for people to get to know you?
Start with Facebook. I'm starting to launch, ramp up my LinkedIn again, but definitely my Facebook timeline is where I live. Okay. I might be bouncing over to Instagram, but I'll announce that on Facebook anyway. So it's just Marina Giokas. That's it. So okay. It's easy.
We'll put that down there as well.
Yeah, and if somebody wants to message me and they want to connect and they want to have a chat, I'm totally open to that. By all means, we need to share and help each other.
We do need to share. These stories are, life-changing for people, because all it takes is, one story like yours, and somebody hears it, and then, they go get their DNA tested, and all of a sudden that's, takes them up this trajectory of health, which is so important. So, and not everybody wants to share their story. So many people, when they've been diagnosed with something, they've gone through that, their own healing journey, they just want to put it behind them and then move forward, which I completely understand. But you have gone through, in such a short period of time, so much learning. And for some people in a lifetime, they'll never even come across information like what you provided just in an hour of chatting with us, hour and a half of chatting with us. So thank you very, very much. I so deeply grateful for the work that you've done to get yourself to here. And I can't wait to stay connected and just seeing where this healing journey takes you. I'm definite that it's going to help so many people in this world, as well as yourself.
Perfect. I hope so. And Nicolette, thank you, because you were the one that really helped. You, between you and Sherry Strong, really helped kick me off to that extra level that I needed to go to, and I need to go another level. So it's just bit by bit. And so thank you for everything you've done, and Sherry Strong for everything she's done, and Lois Naherney and DNA testing. And I'm happy to talk to anybody about DNA testing and even share reports, because it's really quite, they're really quite extensive and extremely helpful.
Amazing. Yeah, I went through her book, and yeah, it is incredible, the insight that it provides and how it makes you just think very differently about your whole environment, your kitchen and your fridge and the grocery store. And so, I mean, just that alone can be such a launching pad into, asking further questions and doing what's right for your body. And a lot of it too, I realized with that, is that it triggers your intuition. You're like, oh yeah, I kind of knew that wasn't good for me, and that didn't work with my body. And then just to have it confirmed, which is pretty interesting. And anything we do when we investigate our bodies further, whether it's mindfulness and meditation or yoga, to see how deep your body can stretch, and how breathing can go deep within the body and help and open up so much. I mean, it's the same way with the DNA testing as well. It's just a deeper dive into the world of food, and it's something we do 3 times a day, plus all the snacks and the beverages. And so getting a better understanding and hold on that, it's really powerful, which is probably why she's called DNA Power, which is a great name for her business. Well, I wish you well in your healing journey ahead, and I look forward to connecting with you again. I'm sure we're going to do a podcast within a year from now, as I want to dive in and learn more from you.
Perfect. Thanks, Nicolette.
Thank you. And I wish you a wonderful, healthy, amazing day, and continue to eat real to heal.
Thanks.
So I hope you enjoyed that podcast with Marina Giokas, and please let us know what you thought of it. Let us know if it inspired you, if there's parts in there that you didn't agree with. We want to hear it all. And also, if you're someone who has a healing hero story, a journey of taking your health into your own hands, please reach out to us at info@richerhealth.ca and let us know of your story of reversing your cancer or chronic disease, particularly if you used food as medicine. But of course, we're open to any which way that you did that. So please reach out to us. We'd love to interview you for our podcast. We have a lineup for all of 2019. So we are looking at 2020 right now, but there's always an opportunity to tell your story in so many other ways. So one of the things you might have noticed from this podcast is that Marina is a huge fan of DNA testing for health and wellness, and how to work with our bodies by supplying it with nutrition, vitamins, supplements, and fitness, and of course by eliminating and shifting the stress in your life. Now, Marina's story is not entirely unique, because we are in a time now which is very exciting, where more and more people are rising up. They're doing research not just on Google, but actually on Google Scholar, where they're finding ways to access journal articles that have been peer reviewed, that have minimal bias to it. And as well, now we're in a time where more and more scientists are making journal articles that were previously that you would have had to pay for a subscription to be able to access them. But now we have all of these wonderful scientists around the world that are making the research open source, which means that you don't actually have to pay to be able to get access to the studies. Because at the end of the day, a lot of that information, you've already paid for it through your taxes, through the purchases that you've made to these companies that fund these research studies. But meanwhile, you don't ever get to access the research itself. So if anybody out there is listening and, there's any information that you ever want, if there's any research that you need, fortunately, I am a PhD student still, and I have access to all of these journal articles for free. So if you ever need support and you want to dive deep into an article, please let us know. All we need is the title, the authors, the year, and I'm able to get that journal article for you and send it to you as a PDF. Another way to get access to science out there that is restrictive to the commoners is to also just email the researchers themselves. Often they'll have contact information. You can find them online and they'll just send you a PDF and you won't have to pay for it that way. So at the end of the day, we believe in open source research, and we also believe that, a lot of these people are doing the research, and we understand the need to have people pay for them because that's what allows them to fund their journal articles. So it's a catch-22, but at the end of the day, you need to get access if you really want to make a good decision for you and for your health and for deciding on what path you're going to take to reverse your chronic disease or cancer. So thanks for being with us. Another announcement that I want to share with you is that we only have a few spots left for our Hollyhock retreat. So go to our website at richerhealth.ca. You'll see a pop-up box for the Hollyhock retreat. It's going to be 5 fabulous days on Cortes Island in gorgeous British Columbia. This island is magical. The moment you step onto it, it's like all the stress of the world melts off your shoulders. And we're going to be spending 5 incredible days there together, where I teach you how to do the Gerson therapy, how to use food as medicine to reverse your diseases. So we're talking about regenerative medicine, which is not the kind of medicine that most people ever do, because they're always trying all of these, gimmicky therapies that work temporarily, but have nothing to do with actually making a lifestyle change that would actually prompt your body to be in a regenerative state. So we're talking about regenerating organs, regenerating tissue, fully detoxifying, it's stimulating the body to heal itself so that the body can do what it's naturally designed to do, which is repair itself, reverse disease, fix broken bones, all of those sorts of things. So this program is truly for anybody who has any type of chronic disease or who hasn't been diagnosed yet, but knows that, they're coming up to a point in their life where chronic disease tends to set in. And what you could do is you could put that at bay. You can ward it off for decades and decades to come when you make the lifestyle changes that we're going to be teaching at that Hollyhock retreat. So sign up today, only a few spots left. It's going to be a wonderful, intimate group. I think we're not accepting any more than 15 people, and we probably have about 12 people registered now, or 13 people registered now. So snag up those last 2 spots, because we'd love to spend a gorgeous week with you on Cortes Island at the Hollyhock Retreat Center. Bye for now, and stay tuned for our next podcast.